Hey, this is Alex Kluge. I'm here from Toronto Home Experts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the like button below. It really helps us out. Okay, so let's jump into the September 2024 numbers. Lots happening with real estate here in Toronto. Very recent, last week, the federal government announced three very interesting mortgage rule changes, and that has some very interesting implications for the Toronto real estate market. Firstly, CMHC is now allowing up to 30-year amortizations, so now up from 25, and also increasing the cap on insurable mortgages up to 1.5 million, up from 1 million. So that's a pretty big change. And also, the stress test is no longer applicable on mortgage switches. So if you're got a mortgage renewal and you're switching to a new institution, you do not have to qualify at the stress test rate, which is higher than what you'd be paying. So anyway, so these three changes were recently announced, and that has some interesting implications in the sense that, like, on the surface, those changes, of its own really don't change much. But I think of what it signals to consumers is that the federal government's willing to implement these changes to allow consumers more flexibility with their mortgage options. Because effectively, if you're buying a property over just over $1 million, you couldn't get a high ratio mortgage. There's some exceptions, but so that really limited buyers in that they had to come up with a larger down payment. Now, this is basically allowing more consumers more debt, but obviously you have to qualify, and CMHC has their criteria. But this is, I think, a positive indication that the federal government is really willing to institute changes to help uh, real estate. So, do I think these changes are going to have immediate impact? No, because these changes are only coming in effect December 14th. But it actually, I think, has prompted, certainly on what we're noticing, new conversations with potential buyers saying that these changes would benefit them, and so that's actually allowing more buyers to come into the marketplace and purchase. So, anyways, I'm going to jump into the numbers now because that's really what we're here about. But I wanted to mention that just because it's an important context that those changes haven't really been, or haven't at all, impacted these numbers, because the numbers share a slightly different story. Okay, so active listings are up 35% from last year. So normally, that would signal massive change in the sense that it's a massive buyer's market, and we're seeing prices drop and all this sort of thing. And while that's not really happening, it's certainly not good that we're seeing all this inventory hit the market. Like, months of inventory has now increased to just over 6 months for condos. So, like, condo market is certainly seeing a lot more of a slowdown. Freehold is down to 4 months, I should say. So 4 months is still not amazing. It's not a seller's market by any means, but it's teetering in between buyer and balance. So it's kind of right in that middle. But anyway, so inventory's up, and so let's see what happened to prices. Like, you would imagine, if we're seeing inventory rise so much relative to where we were last year, that we'd see prices drop. But in effect, that hasn't really happened. Yes, we're down 1%. It's really not a significant change, and showing that we got some stability, because prices are a little bit sticky on the way down. But I feel, my sentiment, and certainly what I'm seeing, is that we're probably pretty close to the bottom. And I said this last month because the numbers were sort of suggesting that yes, on the surface they don't look great, but we're seeing that buyers are stepping in at certain price points, and properties are selling. And yes, they're selling at a slight discount to where they would have been a year ago, but really that's not really showing maturely in the numbers. And so here's kind of an interesting stat, and this typically happens months over month from August to September, but this year we're up 3% from August to September. And this is probably slightly above average, which I'm not saying that we should hold a parade or anything, that the real estate market's back. But I think this is one of the slightly bullish indications that that probably prices are near the bottom. So anyway, so it's an interesting time when we're coming to real estate, and what I want to see is some of the inventory that's been increased and being absorbed. Now, typically new listings decline in October vis-a-vis September, but we want to see a greater absorption. And just my little snippet over the last 9 or 10 days is that we are seeing an increase in sales, but it's really dependent on location and property type, condo versus freehold, because those markets are behaving very differently right now. Okay, so sales volume, we're seeing up 8.5%. But remember, we saw inventories up by 33% or 35%. Sorry. So usually you want to see those numbers go in lockstep, and that obviously hasn't happened. But yeah. So, anyways, this is I think an indication that months of inventories are still rising, and I think we're going to see inventory probably continue to rise throughout the rest of this year. But January, February, I think are going to tell a very different story. That's my prediction, but this is not a prediction video. But that's what I think we're going to see happening. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in this month. We really appreciate your help and your support. And as always, if you have any specific questions about your properties that you're looking either to buy or to sell, we're always here to answer any questions you may have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next month. Bye for now.